Hello everyone, Daniel Sizowitz with the Casimir Effect, here to talk to you about the process we use to record our songs. Now, home recording is nothing new. There's lots of ways to do it, and I don't claim that our way is better than everyone's or that our recording quality is better than everyone's. But what does make our process special is that none of us are full-time professionals. Every member of this band has a full-time day job, families at home, some of us even have babies and toddlers to take care of. And yet, we've been able to produce 3 full albums worth of quality recordings that we are really proud of. I know of a lot of people who are spending way more time and money to get a product of equal or lesser quality, or they've just given up completely because they don't have time or they don't think they can do it. Well, I'm saying you can do it. We've been doing it for years, and I'm going to show you how. Part 1, preparation. Alright, so we've finished writing our song, we've played it with the band, everybody knows their parts, we got the arrangement just how we want it. Time to record, right? Not exactly. Pro-ish tip number 1, give your song time to settle. Now what I mean by that is we'll often finish a song only to find a week later that it doesn't feel quite right and something needs tweaking. Sometimes it's a big change, sometimes it's a small change, sometimes this happens many weeks in a row, or it might not happen for a long time, and then one day we go, oh, that's what this song needs, and we change everything.
Here we go, pivot, pivot, pivot!
In any case, my suggestion is make sure your song is fully settled so you know you have it just how you want it before you start recording. When you're ready, it's time to move on. Part 2, drums. We always like to start by recording the drums first because once you have a finished drum track, that gives everyone else something to play to that will not only give them the tempo, but also the feel and energy of the song. The first thing you'll need to record drums, or anything else for that matter, is a DAW. The DAW we use is Logic Pro X, but there's a wide variety of DAWs at different price points that you can choose from. Other than that, we just use a USB cable and our Roland electric drum kit. That's right, we record with electric drums. Now, I know that puts off a lot of people for a lot of reasons, but let me explain why. Let's consider everything you'd need to get a good sound recording acoustic drums at home. At a minimum, you'd need a great sounding drum kit, a properly treated space to record them in, a minimum of 5 to 7 drum mics to record them with, plus an audio interface that can record all of those mics simultaneously. Then you need the know-how to actually set up those mics and record with them. Plus, you have to be willing every time you make a mistake to either start the whole take over or punch in and splice, which with acoustic drums can be very difficult to do at home. All in all, you're looking at a significant amount of expense, training, not to mention time and effort every time you want to record. Now let's consider everything you need to record with electric drums. Simply plug in your E-kit to your computer using the USB cable and record as MIDI into your DAW. Now getting a great sound is as simple as selecting the drum sounds that you want, and most DAWs have great drum sounds built right in. We've used the stock drum sounds from Logic for all 3 of our albums, and no one has ever criticized our drum sound. In fact, a lot of people ask me how we got such a good drum sound recording at home.
I know what I'm about, son.
Editing MIDI drums is a breeze as well. If you make a mistake, it's super easy to punch in and splice, or even manually move the MIDI data to get your part sounding as perfect as you want. Now personally, we try not to abuse this power since we want our drums to sound real and natural. But still, for those moments when just that one kick drum was a hair early, or that one snare was a little bit too loud, it's great to make those minor adjustments without having to re-record everything. Now, it may be true that the best sounding MIDI drums will never sound quite as good as the best sounding acoustic drums, but if we can get 90% of the way there at less than 1/10 of the effort, we'll do it every time. From there, the process is simple. We pump up the metronome and the whole band performs the song while only the drums are being recorded. This makes it easier for the drummer to play with the proper feel and energy of the song. We keep every take until we get a good one, which doesn't take long when you're recording with ace drummers like Jacob Ignacio, Cam Brown, or Sean Moultrie. Later, the drummer goes through the take on their own time and finalizes it. If there are any mistakes, he or she can splice in from one of the other takes, or just adjust the MIDI as necessary. Once the drums are finalized, we can move on to part 3, bass. One of the nice things about recording drums first is now the other musicians can record their parts without having to have the drummer present. These days it's usually just our bass player Matt and myself in the room when it's time to record his parts. Here's what we use to record bass. A bass, our DAW, and an audio interface. We've been using the same simple, inexpensive 2-channel interface for years now, and it works great, but there's a variety of styles and price points for you to choose from. Now, many bass players prefer to mic up their bass amps and plug into that, which is fine to do, but we found it simple and effective to just use the amp modelers that come stock with Logic Pro to get our tones. More recently, we've experimented with using external amp modelers like the Line 6 Helix. Once we've got that bass tone dialed in, it's time for Matt to throw on his headphones and record along with that drum track. Once he's got a take he likes, we punch in to fix any mistakes, and we're ready to move on to part 4, piano. Recording piano couldn't be easier. Just like with the electric drums, we use a USB cable to plug straight into our DAW and record as MIDI. I have yet to meet anyone who can distinguish between MIDI piano and the real thing.
It's not a lie, if you believe it.
From there, it's just like recording drums or bass. Get a few takes till we have one we like, fix any mistakes by punching in or editing the MIDI data manually, and we're done. Pro-ish tip number 2, double them up. Since there's no possibility of bleeding when recording this way, it's easy to record bass and piano at the same time without having to set up separate soundproof rooms. We recorded every track this way for our second album, All We Have Is Today, and it saved us a ton of time. Part 5, guitars. You guessed it, recording the guitar is a lot like recording the other instruments. I get my tones by plugging my guitar into an amp modeler called the Headrush, and then plugging the Headrush into my audio interface. Now there's a lot of purists out there who still maintain that an amp modeler will never sound as good as a real tube amp. However, there is a growing number of professional guitarists who prefer to record this way simply because it's so easy to get a good, clear signal straight into your DAW without having to worry about mics or room noise.
It'll be easy as 1, 2.
The one exception I make is for recording an acoustic guitar, for which I'll use a mic like this Audio-Technica AT2020, or that skinny cylindrical one that I can't remember the name of.
You've made a huge mistake.
Once the guitar is finished and we have a fully recorded rhythm section, we can move on to Part 6, vocals. I'm gonna tell you a secret. We don't have a soundproof vocal booth.
I don't know what to do. My whole brain is crying.
I know, it sounds crazy, but the truth is we just wait till our kids go to sleep and go to an isolated, carpeted room in our house. We have a small sound shield that attaches to our mic stand, and honestly, that's always worked great for us. Allie and Luke always work together to record their vocal parts. I used to help, but we learned a long time ago that part of the process works better with fewer cooks in the kitchen.
No, it's not about all. It's not about that. Oh.
I do my vocals separately and on my own time, just like with guitar, and that's honestly how I like it. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. Part 7, other instruments. Pro-ish tip number 3. Ideally, you always want to record vocals last so that your singers can be performing to a more or less completed track. However, we tend to make exceptions for melodic instruments like violin or horns or any kind of solo, or textural things like string or synth pads. The reason is that these are all things that can get too busy if we're not careful, and it's easier to fit them around the vocals once they've already been recorded to make sure that they don't get in the way. We usually record violin similar to how we record vocals, and anything else from organs to synths to strings is all done on the computer using MIDI. Part 8, mixing and mastering. Now the truth is that mixing is a hugely important part of the recording process, and honestly, it's one that we in the Casimir Effect prefer to leave to the professionals. Because we're not spending a lot on studio time or lots of expensive mics and equipment, we feel comfortable all pitching in and splurging a little on a great mix engineer like Hans Guerin or our friend Brian Schubel. But if you're not in a position to hire a professional, fear not. With a little time and practice, it is totally possible to get some great sounding mixes on your own. Whatever you choose, my final pro-ish tip is that you remember this old saying, garbage in, garbage out. In other words, all the best mixing in the world won't do much for you if the recording isn't good. So really focus on getting the best quality recordings you can at the front end of this process. And that, my friends, is how we in the Casimir Effect record our songs. I hope you found this helpful, and maybe even inspiring, that even if music is a side hustle or a passion project for you, that you can still get great quality recordings in a manageable way. In the meantime, keep rocking. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Daniel Sizowitz, and until next time.